Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are sharing what Amtrak does better than anybody else, but nobody quite understands it.
We're here to shine a light on the things that Amtrak does really well today. Now they do get their fair share of criticism for doing some things wrong, mostly being late almost all the time. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about the things that they do better than anyone else. Because there are some things that they get criticized for where it's actually better than the rest of the world. So the rest of the world's even worse at what they're doing. Let's jump right in here and talk about booking on the app or booking on the Amtrak website. This is a real source of contention for people because we hear all the time how hard and difficult it is to book Amtrak train travel, either on the app or the website. It's so confusing, is what people say. And it may be confusing, but it is pretty much by far the best train booking system in the world. Via Rail's app, let's talk about that to start with. Our Canadian friends, they just did away with it. We have train tickets for Via Rail this year, and we went to go to the app to look at them, and it said, we don't do the app anymore. You can't do that.
They just shut it down,
Yeah, they shut down the app, and then the Via Rail website is actually pretty hard to navigate, and there's a lot of things you can't do. We're trying to change the ticket. They said you just have to call in, which was a little difficult for us because we're not in Canada or the United States right now, so it kind of made it difficult. Via Rail is okay, but it's, they don't even have an app, so that really doesn't compare.
Well, and honestly, even when they did have the app, when we were using it last year, when we were planning our trip, the app itself was really clunky and so difficult that we were doing it. We were trying to book some trips, and we ended up actually booking double because it told us that it didn't process when it had actually processed. And then by the time we booked the next set, which we thought was the first set, we got a message that we had another set of tickets. I was like, oh my gosh, now we have 2 sets of tickets. Now, we did have to call them and they refunded it fully, no problem at all, but we had to go through the hassle of doing that. So it was so clunky to begin with and so buggy and glitchy. I'm sure that they were having trouble with just keeping up with the maintenance of it alone, but then they're not putting the effort into the website, which is making it also quite complicated.
So let's move on to Japan, which, don't really even get me started on this one because it is so confusing and so difficult that we end up just having to go to the station to buy them because you really need to get a couple of tickets every time you're riding. You need a train ticket, and you need a seat assignment also, which happens in a lot of countries, which is very confusing. Some of the seats are unreserved, some of them are reserved on the same train, and then you just don't really know what you need. We've gotten to the station several times. They've given us several tickets. You have to just enter them into a machine. I don't know which one we've got. We end up throwing our hands up in the air and just going over to someone and saying, what are we doing here? Because it's difficult.
Yeah, they give you a little envelope with a bunch of little green tickets, and you're just like, well, I don't know which combination of these I'm going to need when I get up there, and you just start feeding tickets into the machine, and it keeps flashing red or a big X, and you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. A lot of times they'll come over and they see you, they're like, okay, I need to go help this person because this is a mess, and they're holding everything up, or we give up and go over to the person in the little ticket booth. But you need, not only do you have your train ticket, but you also have a special pass-through that you need as well. So you need this little pass-through ticket and your ticket on the actual train, which is really quite bizarre. But again, your best bet is to go to the actual station to purchase it. So that makes it a little bit complicated too, especially if you're traveling during a high travel area time, then you want to make sure that you get your tickets ahead of time and that you get that seat assignment as well, because that's a pretty huge thing. And sometimes they change if a train has a seat assignment or if it doesn't have a mandatory seat assignment. So that is even more complicated. There's so many nuances to it.
There is an app you can buy them on, but it is even more complicated. And they do actually have 2 sleeper trains in Japan that we wanted to ride. And so the problem with that is you can't book the trains unless you're in Japan, and you're supposed to book them online. But that's so utterly confusing that we couldn't pull it off. And so we went to the station to ask them if we could buy tickets on the sleeper train. And I kid you not, the guy at the station and ticket office pulled out a book like the size of a phone book and started flipping through the book looking
so
at stuff.
wild.
And first of all, we didn't speak Japanese and he didn't speak English, so we were kind of doing this through Google Translate. And I was like, there has to be a better system than this guy flipping through a phone book to see if we can get tickets on a sleeper train. Turns out after about 10 minutes, he was just like, you can't do it. So
he was like, it's sold out.
It's sold out, yes. He just said it's sold out. I don't think he could figure out how to get us tickets on it. Then moving on to Europe. Europe is a little confusing because it's all different countries. And they all do it differently. You've got border crossings to deal with. There are some apps you can buy, like the train line, which kind of makes it a little easier, but it's not as easy as Amtrak. So we just want to go back and say, Amtrak, I know they get kind of talked badly about for their app and their website, but it is, we think, the best train app and website in the world for booking tickets. So we're here just to set that record straight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a no-brainer, and people don't fully understand that it's actually not that bad in comparison to some of the other things that we've had to do in order to get train tickets in different countries. It's just really chaotic, and this is actually not that complicated. And if I had to choose between the Amtrak website and the Amtrak app, we always book through the app, find it a lot easier to maneuver. So if you're looking for the easier one of just the Amtrak, I would definitely lean towards using the app.
Yeah, let us know your experience buying tickets. Let's get on to the next one, which is going to be food. Amtrak also takes a pretty solidly bad rap for food. They do have the traditional dining, which is mostly on the West Coast sleeper trains. They've got the flexible dining on a lot of the East Coast routes. Then there's the Acela dining. They've got the cafe car. So they have a pretty wide variety of food. We can tell you that in Japan, they have basically done away with almost all the food, except for in Grand Class, which is pretty expensive. We have ridden it several times though, so we can show you here. It's really just a choice of 2 things. You can get a Western menu or a Japanese style set. And it's really just small bites.
Very small bites. And you get 4 of them in the little box. And then if you want a dessert, you can ask for that. That's also included, as well as your beverage. And they do give you a quick little snack of like these little sausages in a little package. But it's a snack. I wouldn't necessarily call what they give you in Grand Class a meal. Every once in a while, you'll find like some vending machines available on the trains, but other than that, there's really not a lot of offerings. Like you said, they've done away with most of it on the trains here in Japan for the most part.
They've even done away with the people walking down the aisle selling stuff, like on the airlines. They just don't do any of that anymore. So food is very sparse. You can buy food in the station and bring it on, but you can also do on Amtrak. Moving on to something like Italy, they really only serve a continental breakfast on their sleeper car trains. And that was really surprising to us because we were there for dinner. Now, luckily, we had bought some sandwiches and had them, but we were shocked the first time we got on an Italian sleeper train and realized there's no food.
Yeah, there's no food and there's nowhere to go eat it. They bring you the breakfast in the morning to your room. You get a quick little knock, here's your tray, and off they go. And that's pretty much it. And it's a pretty quick little thing, either coffee, juice, and then some sort of bread with a jam or Nutella or something. And that's pretty much it. It's a pretty basic serving that they give you on those Italian sleepers.
Yeah. Then moving on to the UK, we rode the Caledonian sleeper there. And it's not a cheap sleeper car train, and it's not a long sleeper car train. They do have food car on there, but they do charge extra. You have to pay for the food. So Amtrak, if you're in a sleeper car, all that food is included. And this food was good, but it wasn't cheap, and the portions were quite small.
Right, and they did also have the same type of breakfast available in the morning. Again, it was a very, quick, small thing. On the Caledonian Sleeper, it was like a sausage roll or a bacon roll. I think it was basically just bread with bacon inside, and then coffee, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah. Europe, night jets, just a continental breakfast. Basically the same as Italy. Nothing really else available. So it's basically limited food service. And then we're going to get to Via Rail, which now Via Rail does shine in their food. The food is great. The variety is great because unlike Amtrak, Via Rail does change their menu every single day. So you're not eating the same flat iron steak every single night. But the knock we have on Via Rail is you can't eat the food in your room, which we often like to do sometimes.
Yeah, and especially like we've done both the cabin for two and also done the upper lower berths. And if you're in an upper lower berth, even if they let you have it in your room, what are you going to sit on your bed and eat your breakfast? There's really nowhere to have it anyways, so they don't even bother with it. I think just because it's simpler that way. But that's definitely like you said, I do like the fact that they give you a lot of offerings, a lot of choices every day. The menu changes, so you get new decisions to make every single day. But the fact that you can't have that little break every once in a while. You've watched our channel before, we like to enjoy some of the meals in our room so we could sit quietly and enjoy the view, especially on Via Rail where you do have to also share a table at every single meal.
Right, so moving on to sleeper routes, and this is somewhere that Amtrak really shines because most of the world is doing away with sleeper routes, and that's in some parts because of high-speed rail. Now, as you know, Amtrak doesn't have a lot of high-speed rail, so they have to keep the sleeper routes. So Amtrak has by far the most sleeper routes of any country out there. You won't find a bigger system of being able to travel that far and that long. And there really just isn't a way to do it. We tried to take a lot of sleeper trains in Europe, and they're so short that they're really not even enjoyable. Like from London going up north, the ride is only going to be 7 or 8 hours, so you're getting on at 11 o'clock at night, you're getting off at 7 in the morning. Mm-hmm. It's not a lot of fun. Like you're really just sleeping. And
right. Same thing in like France. We went from Paris to Toulouse, and we got on later on in the evening. I think it was like 9 or 10, and then we pulled into Toulouse at like 7 a.m. So you're asleep for the entire ride. You're only on there just to sleep.
Yeah, so we did try a long one in Italy. We purposely went to Milan so we could go all the way down to Sicily. And that was actually fun. So we could actually, wake up and have a few hours on the train before we pulled into the station. So really, you don't get that experience like you on Amtrak where you have multiple nights or you can, spend a whole day on a train seeing the sights or feel like you've seen the country. Most sleeper trains, you don't see anything. It's dark when you get on, it's dark when you get off. Except for, again, Canada, you ride the Canadian, that's kind of the same as Amtrak. But even there, they only have really 2 sleeper routes that are, you can do, whereas Amtrak has lots and lots of sleeper routes. So Amtrak does sleeper routes better than anyone.
Absolutely. And actually, all of these train rides that we're talking about, we have shared here on the channel. So if you want to go back and see some of these experiences, and I've showed you some here in this video a little bit, but if you want to actually see the ride or see a little bit more about those rides, we've got them right here on the channel. You feel free to check out our rides in France, in Spain, in Italy, in Switzerland, all over. So just make sure to check those out here on the channel.
Next one's going to be staff helpfulness. And Amtrak does not get a bad rap for staff helpfulness because the staff is very good on Amtrak. And I think people realize the staff is very good. But we're just here to kind of reinforce that the staff is very good when you compare it to the rest of the world. Now, I will say in Japan and Canada, they're also very good. the staff helpfulness. They're going to be around to see if you need anything to help you. A lot of parts of Europe, though, the staff is just really there for an emergency, and they're just there to check your ticket and see if something's going to happen. You need to get a hold of somebody, but they're not going to come by and give you any real level of service.
Right. I think on one Italian train, an attendant actually came to our room and gave us this little button that velcros to the wall in the room and said, "This is the big problem button. If you have a big problem, hit it. If you don't, don't."
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it. So I was like, so only if I have a big problem do I hit this button. It's not like, it's not like calling your attendant on the Amtrak train, like if you want water or whatever, if you need something, they can come to your room and assist you. But there was like, only hit this if you have a big problem.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, got it.
We didn't end up hitting it.
We didn't.
Then you've got little things like scenery announcements. One thing I love about Amtrak is they do point out things like if you're on the California Zephyr, they'll point out little sights you can see. Even on the Empire Builder, they'll do that. Sometimes on the CoStar Light. And that makes it more of like a vacation sightseeing train. We've really not felt or experienced that anywhere else in the world. Via Rail, again, maybe a little bit there, not quite as much as Amtrak, but most of the world, it is used as a means to get from point A to point B, not a vacation, not a touristy thing. And so Amtrak really does shine in pointing out little things you want to see.
Yeah, even thinking about, riding past Mount Fuji in Japan, and you kind of have to just track it yourself. Or, riding past the ski slopes from the Olympics in Nagano. Nobody points those things out. You just kind of have to know which direction you're in and what you're going to be coming upon and looking on the map and figuring it out yourself rather than, on Amtrak and some on Via Rail, they tell you, oh, this is coming up here and it's this kind of lake and, they built this cabin, or look for that, car on the side of the hill. If you've ridden the California Zephyr, you know what I'm talking about. Those types of things I think are really what make it really cool and fun. And like you said, more vacation-like.
And then we got the pricing. And the pricing, we're going to break this down by pricing per hour that you're on the train, because Amtrak prices can be more expensive, but they're also 4 and 5 times longer than trains. So in the UK, you can be hitting up to $50 per hour to be on the train, and in Japan, upwards of $100 per hour. Now that's because it's a high-speed train, but Amtrak trains are a good value for the money, for how long you are on them, how many meals you are getting, and how many nights that you get to sleep on them. And when you compare that even to the Canadian trains, those are pretty expensive, and shockingly expensive, and Amtrak still comes out as a real bargain in that field.
Yeah, when we went to book our first Via Rail ride a couple years ago, we were like, whoa, super sticker shock. And even the differences from like an upper lower berth and cabin for two, it was like, wow, this is huge difference between these, and a huge difference between what we pay for rides on Amtrak. So it really is, it really is a matter of just the price per the hour, just taking that into account when you're trying to decide what to do.
Yeah, exactly. So guys, let us know what of these you've experienced in the comments below. Let us know your thoughts, questions, and hopefully this video has been helpful. If it has, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you on the next video.